Welcome, everyone, to the STARTALK Voices Plenary. I'm Pam Delfosse, and on behalf of the National Foreign Language Center and our STARTALK Central team, I would like to invite you now to celebrate a decade of making a difference through your work with STARTALK. We have the great privilege today to hear from 4 of our STARTALK program alumni about ways that their STARTALK program experience impacted their personal, academic, and/or professional life. It was my great pleasure to have an opportunity to get to know these 4 young women and to hear their stories. And I reminded each of them that as they speak today, they are speaking to a very friendly audience, our STARTALK family. And I tried to alleviate any of their stress by reminding them that they are the reason each and every one of us in this room does what we do in our work. Our work is about the teachers and the students in our program. And I hope that you enjoy hearing their 4 stories today as much as I have enjoyed coming to know them through their stories. Our first speaker today, Miss Nathalie Levine, is an alumna from the Princeton West Windsor Plainsboro Mandarin Chinese student program. And she's here today to share with you the impact that STARTALK can have in the life story of one individual student participant. Nathalie, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name's Nathalie, and I was a student in the Princeton West Windsor Plainsboro STARTALK program from 2007 to 2010. So that was 10 years ago. And I'm really honored to be here with you all today because I owe STARTALK a lot. And I'm going to share a little bit about the path that STARTALK has put me on. When my high school started offering Mandarin in 2006 or 7, the local buzz around the new program kind of turned me off. Parents talked about wanting their kids to be competitive in the new global economy, and journalists said things like, "Everyone is catching Chinese fever." I didn't feel like that was something I could catch, even if I wanted to. I am half Chinese, and as a young child, I'd spoken a Cantonese dialect with my mom and my grandmother. I felt that Mandarin had nothing to do with me, but my mom wanted me out of the house for 2 weeks that summer, so I signed up for STARTALK. I've always enjoyed learning languages, and at first, I just thought STARTALK was really fun. I remember how thrilling it felt to understand none of what the teacher was saying. I remember Wang explaining stroke order as she showed me how to write the number 4. I heard my name spoken for the first time in a new dialect, and over those 2 weeks, I began to develop a relationship to the language. So I took Mandarin for the rest of high school, and I went to STARTALK every summer. My friends thought I was a total nerd for going to school in the summer, but I loved everything about it. Being immersed in Chinese for 6 hours a day felt indulgent. I would get home and accidentally answer my mom in broken second-year Mandarin, which of course she couldn't understand. I wish STARTALK lasted all year. While I'm not a native speaker of Mandarin, STARTALK had given me a strong foundation in speaking and listening. So in college, I bounced back and forth between heritage and non-heritage classes. In the heritage classes, I struggled to keep up with everything the other students had grown up just knowing. My classmates had to help me defend my Chineseness to our teacher, who liked to refer to me as foreigner. In the non-heritage classes, I felt bored by the material and annoyed at all the white boys who somehow knew more business-related vocabulary in Mandarin than I knew in English. 2 things kept me from quitting Chinese forever. One was a TA who ended every class by sharing a few lines of classical poetry. Listening to them reminded me of my first year at STARTALK, the thrill of hearing words I could not yet understand, words I hoped I could someday find meaningful. And the other thing was that I got the opportunity to study in China. I was very excited. After all those summers of practicing, I would finally get to ask for directions and bargain for a t-shirt in Chinese. I also thought that I would get to learn about my heritage. But there I was in northeastern China, 2,000 miles from my grandmother's home village, studying a dialect that no one in my family had ever spoken. 2 weeks in, I called my mom in tears. "I look at the people here and I try to see us in them," I told her. but I can't. I'd thought I was doing this because it had something to do with me and my family. Wasn't this where we had come from? But everything felt strange. Over time, though, the strangeness became familiar, and then it became very, very dear to me. A couple years later, I moved back to Harbin for a program where we signed a pledge to speak only Mandarin for 3 whole months. We gossiped, prayed, made friends, made art, studied botany, and watched all 8 Harry Potter movies, all in Chinese. It was like my old dream of staying at StarTalk all year. There were little things that took me back to being a kid. A detail on a ceramic bowl, the taste of Joe, a brush painting gathering dust on an apartment wall. And there were bigger things that spoke to who I had become. One night, my friends and I went out to Harbin's only gay bar in an unmarked walk-up by the railroad tracks. A drag queen softly crooned a Chinese standard as boys watched each other with a shyness that broke my heart. I looked at the Confucius figurines behind the bar, and I thought about my grandmother, long gone. There were parts of me that she would never be able to understand. I still couldn't speak her language. But there's language, and then there's everything else, and I thought, if my grandmother could see me there, spitting sunflower seeds and getting weepy under the red lanterns, there might be something she could recognize, because Chinese was no longer something that I could sign up for or quit. And being Chinese was no longer just a weird quirk from my past or a vague goal for my future. It was part of who I'd become. So several months later, I was living in Taiwan, and I found out that I had some relatives who had never left China. One of them, an elderly cousin, took me to our ancestral village in Guangdong province. He showed me the family temple and the ruins of my grandparents' house. He told me how my grandmother waited 13 years for papers to join my grandfather here, and how he found her in immigration detention at Angel Island. My cousin died last fall, and I feel so grateful that I got to meet with him and learn about our family. All of our conversations were in Mandarin. Now, I live here in Atlanta, and I work at an Asian American advocacy nonprofit in the northern suburbs. Tomorrow, I'm running a citizenship drive at a Cambodian community center on the south side. And we also do a lot of work to increase voter turnout in immigrant communities. I got to write this year's Chinese language voting slogan, which is 今年投票非常重要. And that means voting this year is extremely important. I was definitely inspired by all the rhymes I learned at StarTalk. I'm so happy to be using my Chinese to work on behalf of immigrants like my grandmother, who so often are not treated here with the dignity and respect that everyone deserves. So in conclusion, I honestly did not go into StarTalk thinking that I would ever spend more than 2 weeks learning Chinese. Now it has been 10 years, and I'm really grateful for this opportunity to reflect on how Chinese has become such an important part of my life and myself. I want to say thank you to all the educators here for everything you've done for me, so many other heritage students, non-heritage students, and everybody in between. I have to give a shout out to Wang Laoshi, who actually was one of my teachers 10 years ago in 2007. And I'm really grateful to this program, to all of you who made it possible. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nathalie. What a wonderful story, and thank you for sharing it with us today. Our second speaker today is Miss Ashira Anderson, and Miss Anderson attended the University of Chicago, Chicago Public Schools Arabic Student Program. Ashira is here with us today to share her story and beliefs that StarTalk can change one's view of the world and open new doors to opportunities. Please join me in welcoming Ashira.
Good afternoon. I think it's fitting that I'm wearing the same outfit in the picture as I am now. So my name is Ashira, born and raised in Chicago, so it's fitting that I went to the U Chicago Public School program. And I'm gonna give you what I hope is a short talk right now. If I can get my iPad to work. In the summer of 2009, I participated in the CPS Arabic StarTalk summer program at the University of Chicago. I enjoyed the experience so much that I returned in 2010 for U Chicago's intermediate level StarTalk program. First and foremost, Participation in the STARTALK program created the circumstances under which I met my best friend, Aja Lee. Aja and I went to Lindblom Math and Science Academy for high school. We saw each other every day in class, but we never spoke. As circumstances would have it, we were both accepted to the beginner STARTALK program, where we heavily relied on each other to make it through the challenging curriculum, creating a friendship that has lasted 8 years and counting. I mention my friendship with Aja for more than just nostalgia. I am a competitive person. We were both great students, but she was always better, which made me do better. Whether knowingly or unknowingly, Aja always pushed me. Recently, one of the girls that I coach in volleyball expressed to me that she didn't do well on her first chemistry test. After talking with her mother, I found out that prior to coming to Mercersburg, she was in an environment where studying and getting good grades wasn't considered cool. It wasn't until she came to Mercersburg that she had friends that were serious about her education, which in turn motivated her to become serious, ending her first year with an overall average of an 89. Sometimes we all need a push from the right person to realize our capabilities. When I chose to study Arabic as a foreign language, I did so without any knowledge of what Arabic was. The more I think about it, I feel like I chose Arabic in part because I just wanted to do the opposite of what my mother wanted me to do, because that's the kind of child I was. 2 summers of studying Arabic at the University of Chicago gave me an appreciation for and understanding of the Arabic language that I had never had. My first summer at UChicago, our teacher, Ustadha K, forced us to go up to patrons at an Arab festival in downtown Chicago and try striking up a conversation in Arabic. We were all nervous because we doubted our speaking abilities, but everyone was really encouraging and constantly expressing how much they appreciated that we attempted to learn their language. That was the day I learned the value in approaching someone on their level, and language is certainly a part of that. No one cares if you conjugate a verb incorrectly or assign the wrong pronoun. During my second summer, we studied Arabic grammar, which I enjoyed partly because of my professor's incorporation of music into her lessons, and partly because I just enjoyed learning grammar. Learning a language is like putting together a puzzle, and grammar is the last piece, so I felt like I could see the big picture coming together. Throughout my entire career as a language student, music has always been one of the strongest tools for building and reinforcing language acquisition. There are songs I remember to this day that teach me about everything from colors to conjugation. Arabic is often criticized as sounding harsh. People often make fun of the harsh letters and words, but the more I studied Arabic, the more I realized how beautiful the language is, and the more I disliked the fact that it was thought of anything but. After 2 summers at STARTALK, I knew I wasn't done, so I continued Arabic past the required 2 years. Senior year, my principal somehow made a connection with Qatar Foundation International, whose goal is to increase Arabic language and culture education for students and teachers across the world. They were sponsoring a Chicago to Doha trip and chose my school because we have the largest non-native Arabic program in the country. As 4 years Arabic students, Aja and I were lucky enough to be selected for the 11-day trip to Doha, Qatar. Those 11 days in October were some of the best days of my life. In Doha, we were accompanied by students from Al Waqra Independent Secondary School for boys and Al Iman Independent Secondary School for girls. We rode ATVs and spent the night in the desert. We went to the Souk, the Museum of Islamic Art, visited a desalination plant, Al Thakira mangroves, had dinner with the American ambassador in Qatar, and much more. The one experience that stands above all else was our visit to a mosque. For entry into the mosque, the women were required to put on the hijab and abaya. For those of you who don't know, it happens to be the head covering and I guess clothes covering that we see made fun of in the news daily. I lost my place here. While the Al Iman girls helped us get dressed, there was a lot of nervousness and giggling. Nervousness because none of the Americans were Muslim, so we had never worn them, and giggling because we were teenage girls. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I had a moment that would change me and transform my thinking for the rest of my life. Post 9/11 Islamophobia has increased exponentially, leaving many women afraid to wear the hijab and many speakers afraid to speak their language. I've heard stories of women who, on the day of the attacks of the World Trade Center, felt so targeted that they tore their hijabs off in the middle of the street. In school and in Doha, we often had debates on whether the hijab was liberating or oppressing. Seeing myself in the hijab, I felt very liberated. I felt free and beautiful, and I felt all the things that people claim women in hijabs couldn't feel. The girls at Al Iman were forced to wear the hijab and abaya by their families, so they took it off whenever possible. While I do believe the hijab should be a choice, I also believe that when it is, people should respect it and refrain from speaking on things they know nothing about. When it was time to apply for college, I knew I wanted to major in Arabic language. I had already developed 4 years to studying it, and achieving proficiency was my #1 goal. I applied for a full tuition leadership scholarship from the Posse Foundation. The scholarship was tied to partner schools, and Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut was the only partner school that offered an Arabic major. Unfortunately, majoring in Arabic was not possible, so I minored in Arabic and majored in biochemistry. After deciding to try teaching, I was led to a chemistry teaching fellowship at Mercersburg Academy. I never would have found a fellowship position so easily without graduating from a school like Trinity. I would never have graduated from Trinity without getting the Posse Scholarship, which would not have been possible without my documented passion for Arabic, which would not have been possible without participation in the STARTALK program. STARTALK provides opportunities for students to learn something different from the norm. People who are able to deviate from the norm and think outside the box are more creative and often more successful. Learning a critical language has impacted more than just my education. It has impacted my personal life, my professional life, and the ways I see the world. I hope that future STARTALK learners will get that. I hope that they will, with your help, start their own journey.
Wow, please join me in thanking Nathalie and Ashira for their poise and confidence today. STARTALK students today have the opportunity to access learning more than 11 STARTALK languages and about the cultures in which those languages are spoken. But our work, although it's primarily about language and cultural teaching, results in so much more, as you heard through the stories that Nathalie and Ashira shared with us today. And teachers bring that learning to life. We now have the privilege of hearing from 2 of our teacher program alumni about their work beyond STARTALK and the role that STARTALK has played in that journey. Ms. Rebecca Wang McKenna is a graduate of the Rutgers University Teacher Training Program, and she's a face that's familiar to many of us because of her role in a very popular STARTALK teacher training video. Ms. Wang is a multi-year participant of STARTALK, and she transitioned from her role as teacher trainee to teacher within the Rutgers program. She's going to talk to us today about the role STARTALK has played in her professional journey. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Pam. My name is Rebecca Wang McKenna, and I'm honored. I'm truly honored to be here to share with you my STARTALK experience. I was extremely privileged and fortunate to be the participant of the very first STARTALK teacher training program 10 years ago, because to me it was truly a life-changing event. Before that, I had been teaching at a weekend Chinese school to a heritage student because I want to teach my own children Chinese. That's how I started, and I really enjoyed teaching, and I thought I was a pretty good teacher. However, when I heard about immersion teaching, I was like, that's not possible. I can't even do that to heritage students. That concept to me, it was just very foreign. And so I enrolled myself to the practicum teaching program at Rutgers University. And that, we worked with the student program at, I think, Princeton, and West Windsor, the Mandarin program that Nathalie was in. And Nathalie was actually one of my very first students. So seeing her here it's like a little bit of a serendipity to me, because it's like I never thought that 10 years later I could see the change that the impact I did for her. So that was really cool. So I enrolled myself, and as a practicum teacher, I'm ready to learn how to be really immersion. Really, I just want to know how to do immersion teaching, because I thought it couldn't be done. And then so for that 2 weeks, it was 2-week all-day student program. So for the 2 weeks as a practicum teacher, I observed in the classroom the master teacher how to conduct instruction 100% in target language. And then we worked in small group with students in target language 100%, and we were required to do so, and I, little by little, was learning to do that. And during lunch, we had immersion lunch with the students, all in target language. And in the afternoon, we had culture events, cultural activities that we did with the students, Tai Chi and all, all in target language. And then at the end of the day, every single day we had a rhyme competition, which I just learned that it had impact on Nathalie doing her slogan now. It all came from that. We had rhyme competition between different levels of students, and that was also all done in Chinese, all target language. So, and then at night I would go home and write my reflection on what I have learned that day as the practicum teacher. And I did that in English because that was my requirement. That was part of the. So then the next day I would do this all over again, 2 weeks, for 2 whole weeks. Honestly, I have never worked so hard in my life before, really. But it was all worth it, because at the end of the 2 weeks, I was transformed. I totally transformed. I became a firm believer of that immersion teaching is not only the best way, but the only way to teach any language. And not only that, I also learned that to give comprehensive input, meaningful context, all that, and lots and lots and lots of that is the most effective way to teach any language. And that was instilled in me in that 2 weeks. And after that, actually at the very end of the program, right after the program, I was hired as a Chinese teacher at the West Windsor School District. And actually my old supervisor is still here. So that was really cool. I got a job right out of the program. And then the following year, I moved to another school district. I was able to start a Chinese program from scratch, and I'm still there. This is my 9th year now there. And I did all that with what I have learned in that 2 weeks, in those 2 weeks. I have returned to STARTALK program almost every summer, as you can see, almost every summer. As first as a resource teacher, and then the 3rd year I become the lead teacher and work with new groups of practicum teacher year after year, holding their hands, every step of the way until they can be on their own, becoming like an effective teacher. Teach standard-based immersion style teacher, like at least start the direction in that journey. And to me, that's just my way of saying thank you to STARTALK. But more importantly, I think the STARTALK program every summer to me is a great opportunity for me to reflect and recharge and to grow even as a veteran teacher. For example, a few summers into the STARTALK program, I discovered the power of TPRS. I was like, wow, this is really great. And I incorporate that into my own teaching ever since then. And then maybe the summer after that, I would be focusing on student-centered teaching. So every year I try to, that gives me an opportunity to fine-tuning my own teaching and just step back to exam and to reflect and to improve my own teaching. And the best part is I was able to pack up everything and bring all this into my own classroom when school starts. And that's the best part. That's the part I love the most, because the way I look at it, my students are the biggest winner in all this, because let's face it, a more efficient teacher will have more proficient students, and that's my goal. That's our goal. And this is my 9th year in my current school district, and our program has grown so much from nothing to a two full-time teacher, from Chinese 1 to AP program. And this is a school district that has less than 1% students that are heritage students. So all my students actually, when they first came to me, they would laugh when I say hello to them in Chinese, only because never heard anything like that. They would laugh, and then I would do the whole class from the very beginning in all Chinese. And then I have parents come to me and say, I will never forget the first day my child come home and talk to me in Chinese. That was really cool. So now, in closing, I just want to share with a parent who just told me at back to school night just a few weeks back. She has two children in our school district program, and both of them studied Chinese with me. And she said she told me her daughter is now a senior in American University in Washington, D.C., and she just finished studying abroad in Beijing, and she just landed a very promising internship in China for the coming summer, and she was very, very excited. And her son is a senior, and he's in my AP class, and his dream is to go to the Naval Academy. And he is very, very thrilled to know that his proficiency in Chinese will be a great asset when he does get in, both to him and also, I think, for the Naval Academy. To me, right, I think so. To me, this is what STARTALK is all about. It opens doors to great opportunities for teachers like me and for the students we teach. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for sharing what you believe the opportunities are that STARTALK has given you and how you're extending that now to your students. Our final in-person speaker today is Ms. Esther Mukewa, who is an alumna from the Nickel Tickle STARTALK teacher program. Ms. Mukewa also began as a teacher trainee and transitioned into the role of teacher within the Nickel Tickle program. Welcome, Esther.
Good morning. My name is Esther Mukewa Lisanza. As Pama said, I'm an alumni of Nikotiko Swahili STARTALK teacher program. And my story with STARTALK began in July 2011 when I attended Swahili STARTALK program at the University of Wisconsin at Madison. I had heard from my fellow Swahili students how Swahili STARTALK teacher program had transformed their teaching, However, because I believed I was already a transformed Swahili teaching assistant, I thought that I did not need STARTALK training. Nevertheless, when I got my first job as a Swahili lecturer at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, after graduating from the University of Illinois with a PhD in language and literacy and an advanced certificate in second language and teacher education, I decided to give STARTALK's teacher training program a chance. I said to myself, a refresher course won't hurt. And I'm so glad I spoke to myself. I applied for the program and I got accepted. I started with the online component of the program. The online component introduced me to some of the theories and principles in second language learning. Given my background in language and literacy, I was familiar with most of the theories. However, backward curriculum design was new to me, and I looked forward to the face-to-face class so as to learn more about it. On my first day after the introduction at the residential program, I realized we had participants from different backgrounds. It was amazing. We had Swahili instructors from all over the nation. And of course, you know, it's not only the Swahili teachers who come from East Africa or Central Africa, but also teachers who've learned Swahili maybe here or overseas in East Africa or Central Africa. So that diversity really struck me during my first day. It was through STARTALK that I met amazing trainers in the name of Professors Antonia Schleicher, Aluya Omar, Kiaria Wajogu. Not only did they introduce me to STARTALK endorsed principles, which I'm going to repeat even though you know them, standards-based and thematically organized curriculum, facilitating a learner-centered classroom, using target language 90% of the instruction time, and providing comprehensible input, integrating culture, content, language, and so forth. But they also introduced how to apply these principles in a real classroom. And as a matter of fact, we had student volunteers from the high schools around Madison. I was also given an opportunity to prepare lesson plans using backward curriculum design so as to demonstrate my teaching with the student volunteers. My experience was breathtaking. I was able to teach the volunteer students in Swahili without using a single word of English. It was possible because I was using different strategies to ensure my input was comprehensible. And at the end of the program, my teaching was completely transformed. And I hope you remember, I believed, before I came for the program, I believed I was already an effective teacher. I realized how ineffective I had been in my teaching. And as a matter of fact, my fellow students and my fellow participants and I wanted to talk to our former students and apologize to them for how we had told them in the past. And actually, I really mean it, we meant it. If we had an opportunity, I would have talked to my former Swahili students at the University of Illinois just to tell them, I'm very sorry for what I gave you. But to cut my story short, that year in August, that's 2011, I reported as a reborn teacher to my new position at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I was very confident of what was expected of me as a Swahili instructor in a US classroom right from day one. And actually, I'm so glad to our trainers, Dr. Schleicher, Dr. Aluya, and Dr. Kiaria Wajogu, because they really prepared us, even to let us know, this is what you'll do when you get to class, your first day. You start using the language immediately. Don't wait till the second day, because during the first day, that's when you attract the students. If you lose them during the first day, you've lost them. So I was very confident when I went to class during that, as a lecturer, as a faculty for the first time in the US, because initially I was teaching as a teaching assistant. And when I got to UNC at Chapel Hill, I was allocated 2 beginning Swahili classes. And after the end of the first day, I had students sending me emails and saying, I want to enroll in your Swahili class. My friends have told me how awesome your class is. Word got out, and all my classes, the 2 of them were filled to the capacity, and I had students on the waiting list. Fortunately or unfortunately, none of the students dropped the courses, and I had to turn down those who were on the waiting list. And just to illustrate how my students had spread the news about my courses, I went into one of the offices to look for a space for the Swahili language table conversations. And the administrative assistant asked me, "Are you the new Swahili professor?" I said yes, very weakly, not knowing what she was asking me. To my relief, she said, "Your students really like your class." And I was like, "Whoa." And I was so relieved when she told me that, because I didn't know what she was to say next. And as a matter of fact, my students to this day, they tell me that they really like my classes because they learn and have fun. As a result of the high demand for Swahili classes, the following year, we opened an extra section of beginning Swahili. Since then, Swahili enrollments have been high and stable. I'm here to let you know that with good teaching, you have a job security. Thanks to STARTALK. Also, I want to point out my engagement with STARTALK did not end with my teacher training. STARTALK has some of the most wonderful mentors. In particular, I'm thankful to Professor Antonia Schleicher's effort in mentoring young scholars and instructors who are affiliated with Nikotiko. Professor Schleicher, or as we fondly call her, Mwalimu Antonia, I guess she saw my determination in putting into practice what we were learning during my teacher training, and I hope maybe she had heard how wonderful I was doing at UNC Chapel Hill. She invited me to attend a master teacher training session in 2014, where I was to be trained to be a STARTALK instructor. When I received those news, I was really excited, and I really looked forward to come back to STARTALK because of what STARTALK had done to me. So I went for this training, and I did very well. And in the summer of 2015, I was invited back to be one of the instructors of Nikotiko STARTALK teacher training program. During this program, I was able to learn much about other cultures and languages, because not only did we have Swahili teachers, but we also had Arabic, Hindi, and Turkish. I've always run away from learning new languages, but I discovered with good language teachers, like the STARTALK graduates, I can learn any of these languages, and so are the other people. What can I say? STARTALK has made me to grow as a person and in my career. I have made great friends through STARTALK. My career path could not have been so successful without STARTALK training and mentorship. As we speak, I'm the coordinator of African Languages program at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. I provide leadership to the program and mentor instructors of African languages. Also, since summer 2015, I have participated as an instructor of National African Language Resource Center's 2-week summer program for teachers. I would like to underscore that my professional life could not have been so successful without STARTALK. And I would like to take this opportunity to inform the STARTALK leadership, mentors, trainers, directors, and supporters that what you do matters. It is positively impacting both the teachers and students of critical languages or less commonly taught languages nationally. I hope STARTALK can have a post-STARTALK program for teachers where they can meet and share their experiences with each other. Thank you so much, and asanteni.
thank you to our teacher program alumni, not only for their remarks today, but for the work that they do each and every day on behalf of StarTalk Language Cultures to bring the language and culture alive in the lives of your students. StarTalk is proud to know that our work is now your work, and you're making a difference each and every day. Today, we were fortunate to hear 4 voices share their StarTalk stories. Imagine what it might mean if we were able to listen in on the more than 26,000 StarTalk program participants of the past 10 years. Let's hear what we might have access to.
StarTalk funding is making it possible for any school district, any university, to offer programs for students to get them excited about these critical needs languages.
We started it 3 years ago, and it keeps growing, and the demand continues to be there.
StarTalk is giving us the energy, the capability, the means by which to change radically what we do in languages in this nation.
The idea is to start early, stay long. So we're hoping that this allows students to become interested in the language and want to continue with the language, and then to provide opportunities for the teachers to develop that capacity for teachers to teach in these critical languages is very important.
The best thing that StarTalk does for all of us is it makes language accessible.
Hi, my name is Sydney Lockaby Catalano, and I am a current sophomore at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. I attended the StarTalk program hosted through the University of Massachusetts Boston from the years 2008 to 2013.
My name is Mei Ting Chen. I participated at StarTalk program in Glastonbury, Connecticut, and I've been working in the program ever since.
My name is Daisy Leon. I participated in the Glastonbury StarTalk Teacher Trainee Program in the summer of 2008.
StarTalk holds a very special place in my heart. I consider it to be the first place that I was able to come together with language learners that were just as passionate and motivated to learn another language and culture.
Participating in StarTalk program helped me to see myself as not just a language teacher, but a teacher from the culture, from the language, from the country, wanting to show the students about my identity, my language, and my culture.
I thank StarTalk for making me grow from a teacher of drill and kill to the teacher I am today, who has the ability to improvise solutions spontaneously.
I was born in China and adopted at the age of 1, and my mom always thought it was very important for me to stay in touch with those cultural roots and heritage from China. And we thought the best way to do this would be to study the language and delve into the culture that way. Upon my entrance to middle school, I had found StarTalk. I was recommended by one of my teachers, and finding StarTalk was a great way for me to really tie myself to a community, to an environment where I felt that I was with similar people that shared the same interest as me.
We started in year 1, and I hadn't started teaching Chinese yet at the time, and we had to do a full hour of micro-teaching in a real classroom full of students. I still remember I was so nervous. We had to, we spent so much time planning. We also had to make the props, make your materials.
After many nights toiling over our lesson plan, our micro-teaching lesson was eventually delivered smoothly, but with a lot of room to improve and grow.
Looking back now, my StarTalk experience has given me so many takeaways and an infinite amount of opportunities that I'm sure still have yet to be explored.
Now, after 8 years since my first StarTalk, I cannot believe how far I have gone in my teaching career. This summer, I was the lead teacher at Glastonbury and Fargo, North Dakota StarTalk. I believe I'm paying it forward, training younger and newer teachers as I was once myself.
So last year, in the fall of 2015, I applied to the Fulbright Hays Scholarship Program and was lucky enough to be selected as one of 16 students nationwide to participate in the Study Abroad program, which was 7 months abroad in Xi'an, China. While there, I had an abundance of resources to take advantage of, both through the university, our program, and also through the city itself.
I'm proud to say that I'm a product of StarTalk. I have grown into a stronger teacher and have gotten to know so many teachers and mentors whom are a big part of my life today.
I think that everyone should learn a foreign language, and that StarTalk is a brilliant way to get started or even continue your path in that way.
It is the best that you could have. So take advantage of it and do it.
All I can say is thank you, StarTalk, for all you've given me. Have the best of 10th birthdays, and I can't wait to see what happens in the future.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg on what we might hear. We'd like to take an opportunity now, as each of our participants has a StarTalk story, to open the plenary to hearing some of your stories and your reflections on the impact of StarTalk. And our MC for the open mic experience, I'll welcome back our Executive Director, Dr. David Ellis.
So being mindful of the time, we've only got about 10 minutes, but Nathalie and Nicole are going to make themselves available with a mic. And as Pam had suggested, if you have personal experiences from first-hand experience or experiences you'd like to share about your students or teachers, we'd love to hear from them now. Danny?
I'm sorry, I didn't know I was going to speak something, but I had shared it with Betsy when we had a site visit this year. My name is Danny Dueri. I'm from San Bernardino, where sadly we experienced the tragic terrorist attack last year. And I'm very also sad to say that the person who did it was my student. I never knew him intimately. Not in the StarTalk, in one of the large classes. When I shared this with Betsy and everybody else, I just wanted to share with you the impact that StarTalk had done for our nation. We serve a very underserved community, and we have been able to pull from our very marginalized community, and I'm not talking about Muslims, I'm talking about people who knew the terrorist person of that faith or other faith. We have been able to pull them out of the street. We have been able to give them education, and one of them now is on his way for a PhD in Arabic language. How much a price could we put of a person who we have pulled out of the street, who could have turned into another tragic event? That is totally priceless if you see the price of that. And I don't want to just make it into a sad story. I want to also say the happy stories that we all share. One of our students, Carlos, say, Carlos, what did you study Arabic? All of them StarTalk recipients. Carlos said, once upon a time, I had a bad heart. I needed a heart transplant. They took my heart away, and they gave me a donor's heart from a little child. He's an Egyptian boy. So I am of a Latino background, but my heart is Arabic, and that's why I want to give back to the community. I am sharing with you the stories of two examples, but I know the thousands and the tens of thousands that StarTalk have had, each have their own unique stories. I could not be more grateful to StarTalk for it's done for our languages that StarTalk supports, but most importantly, to the field of language education, because today even the commonly taught languages are learning from the best practices that StarTalk has stood so rigorously and said, we are going to stick to that. We're going to hold our programs responsible for that, but we're going to make sure the rest of our nation going to benefit from it. Thank you so much, StarTalk.
Thank you very much, Danny. Wafa?
My name is Wafa Hassan. I live in the state of Michigan, and I've been doing StarTalk teacher program for 10 consecutive years in Detroit, Michigan. So many successful stories, but the best thing that every year we offer a StarTalk program, we include the students from Detroit, Dearborn, public schools, and I have students go back to their principals. They bring their principals to the program. They ask them, we're not going to stop learning Arabic now after we joined the STARTALK program. And they asked the principals to start Arabic programs. And it happened many times. They hire teachers from the program itself, and we opened at least 3 schools in Detroit City where students, we were thinking it's gonna start with 1 class. In one of the schools, they started 4 classes at one time. The students really enjoyed so much. The teachers, we become the source for Michigan. Whenever they need a teacher, they call us. Do you have teachers from your STARTALK program? We're gonna start program in Ann Arbor schools. 2 years ago, 2 teachers of the STARTALK program they hired, and they are offering Arabic in all Ann Arbor schools. And the story continues, and I'm hopeful. It's not only that, with the Arabic heritage students and the students from Detroit schools that they never visit, Dearborn community, which is part of, has the biggest or the largest Arabic population outside the Middle East. And they are now knowing that this community exists just across the street from them, 7 miles from Detroit. It's amazing bridge of learning about each other culture. It's really so satisfying. I just want to say thank you to STARTALK, and I'm so committed to this program at many levels, and I feel without STARTALK, so many students and teachers never had the opportunity.
Thank you, Wafa. We have time for maybe one more. Go ahead, Mohammed.
It so happened that the anecdotal story really, a few days ago, I received an email from a student I saw at Colgate University, and I just tried to remember. I was at Colgate for just 1 year, and I saw that student. When I saw him first, 2 years ago, you look familiar because, yeah, I was in a STARTALK program that you came and visited in the Naval Academy. I said, oh, that's wonderful. You took to Arabic. He said, yeah, I'm doing Arabic. But a few days ago, he sent me a message trying to recruit me to work for the translation office he works for in New York now. So there is a benefit really for
job security.
Thank
Another
you
example
very
of job
much.
security.
Job security. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm beginning to notice a trend here that the Danny and Wafa and Mohammed, it's the Arabic culture seems to be very willing to share their stories. Are there any other languages in the audience that would like to share one more before we finish here? I'm sorry, go ahead.
How about some Chinese?
Chinese? Okay.
All right. I came from Troy, Alabama, and when I mentioned the name Alabama, we all know the reactions, obviously. And ours is the only STARTALK program starting 6 years ago. And for some information sharing, Alabama is, in our location, we have military personnel. Some of the military soldiers expressed earnestly that they wanted their children to have another language. And we also have the only auto manufacturing facility named Hyundai, if you know about that. So we are thinking of getting Korea program going if we can. But back to our STARTALK program. For 6 years, we would like to thank STARTALK for letting our people know about such a program. And also we try to gather all our resources that we can lay our hands on. For example, every 2 years, we try to bring roughly about half of our students, about 20, 24. We now do about 24 students per year. So every 2 years, we try to bring them to China for a China trip, visiting. They are allowed 2 cities, and the student, if they are willing to pay an extra $100, they can visit another 2 cities in China. So they actually visit 4 cities in China. That's a wonderful experience for about 10 days for our students. So for that, I thank STARTALK and also thank our resources from Troy University. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have one more story over here, and then I think we'll have to conclude at that point, unfortunately.
Hi, my name is Vidya Nahar. I teach Hindi, and we have a program in Chicago area. I first attended my teacher training program in 2010 at UPenn. It was organized by Dr. Vijay Gambhir and Surendra Gambhir. And that was a totally transformational experience for me. I had started teaching Hindi since 1998 when my oldest one was 4 years old. I grew up in India speaking 8 languages without any STARTALK training program, just going to each of our neighbors' houses. We had neighbors staying upstairs, downstairs, all speaking different languages. So it was very easy. And when our kids grow up here, they have no such exposure. So I thought at least I should teach them one language, and that's why I started. But when I came to this, and I was, of course, teaching in a very traditional way, the way I learned, not the way I learned in the house, but the way I was taught in school with the textbooks and drill and kill, or that. And my educational background is not from language. I was a commerce graduate. I did my 12+3 education in India, so I could not go to a university here because I didn't have the undergrad, which is 4-year graduation or undergrad. So I would have never dreamed of going to a university for an education to be able to teach languages like that. And when I go to this conference, I did my teacher training in 2010. The same year I applied for the grant, and I got it. I was amazed that, oh, this really happened. And I was teaching Hindi out of my basement there, and then I go to these conferences, and I sit at tables, and people ask, we exchange information. Where do you teach? I teach at Columbia. Where do you teach? I teach at Harvard. Where do you teach? UC. Where do you teach? In my basement. Okay. So, how many students do you have? Okay, I have 50 students. So I could have never dreamed of this opportunity if STARTALK wasn't open to bring this to community organizations or heritage schools, which is really important. They play an important role in bringing the languages to the community. And I was able to bring my team with me, Neeru, and where are the others? Together, like, okay. So then the years after, I think the policy had changed and the grant couldn't be given to individuals, so I collaborated with my local organizations, and it was Chinmay Mission. So now the program there is growing very well. More teachers are now coming on board, seeing the progress and seeing the interest in the community, because now more kids want to learn, more parents want their children to learn Hindi. So it was a very transformational experience for my community also, not just for me. And thank you, STARTALK, for giving us that opportunity.
Thank you, everyone. This has just been an absolute thrill and honor to have been a part of, not only this year, of course, but over the past 10. And I just once again want to thank everyone for your participation, your commitment to the program, to the government sponsors, and to all of you for making this possible. It's been another phenomenal conference, our 19th, unbelievably, and I would like to, I don't think we've done it this time as we normally do, but I want to formally thank our team, our STARTALK team at the National Foreign Language Center. I personally can take absolutely no credit for any of the success that's happened this conference or any others, but Nicole, Betsy, Morik, Collins, our organizer, and all of the support staff and team has just done a phenomenal job, so please do thank them. Have a safe trip back. Get your applications in on time, please, and we will see you in the spring.